Today, I want to talk to some of my older college students. So those of you that have gone back to school a little bit later in life. And to clarify, by older, let's go anywhere from age, say 25, and all the way up, many of you being much older than 25. The reason I want to talk to you guys today is because going back to school later on presents a unique set of challenges. These are challenges that I deeply relate to on a personal level, and I know a lot of you do as well, because a lot of my channel is made up of students that are a bit older. Before we talk about these challenges, I want to start with you. So what is your story? If you're watching this video right now, I'm going to assume that you fall into one of the three following categories. 1, you never went to college. 2, you went for a period of time, but for whatever reason didn't finish your degree. Or 3, you did complete your degree and now you're seeking out higher education. If you are going back for higher education, your story is a bit self-explanatory, so I want to talk about the other 2. So let's say you never went to college. A lot of times this means you didn't have the financial means and resources to do so right out of high school. And so a lot of times it also means you had to prioritize work or life. And so you didn't have the time to go to school anyways. And also there is a good amount of you who probably didn't go to college right out of high school simply because you didn't know what to do. Now in the other category, I know there's a lot of you who probably have attended college for a period of time, but you didn't finish your degree. Now, there are 1,000 reasons why this can happen. The easiest way to summarize this is that life happened, and for whatever reason, you weren't able to complete your degree. Personally, I fit into both of these categories, kind of. So I didn't attend college right out of high school. Quite frankly, my family grew up quite poor out in southern Missouri. I had already been working full time. By the time I was 16, I was working at the local McDonald's. And so when I graduated at 18, I didn't have the money or the time to attend school. It wasn't until my early 20s that I enrolled in online college. And quite frankly, I failed out after my first semester because again, I wasn't able to balance school and work. Still working full time, just didn't have the capacity to then go to school and be successful. It wouldn't be until my mid-20s that I went back to school and would be successful. So I went on to complete a bachelor's and a master's, both in business. And quite frankly, I think because by the time I made it back to school, I had this forceful vengeance that I was able to approach school with. Because in a way, I kind of struggled feeling like I was failing at life. Not fully, but largely in part to simply not having a degree yet, or at least being in the pursuit of one. And so I bring this up because I would wager a lot of you can relate to this as well. That feeling of being behind in life. And now, oftentimes you may know on an intellectual level that this isn't the case, but still you can't help but feel like you've wasted part of your life or a large chunk of time. And so everyone else is way ahead of you and you're just stuck behind everybody. And so this often turns into a snowball effect that brings up some very real fears. The 2 that I find the most common is that you have the fear of being judged and the fear of failing. So the fear of being judged, what I mean by this is, well, you worry that when you have to share that you don't have a degree yet, you're going to be judged for that. So when people are talking about their jobs or what they graduated with, and then that inevitable question comes back to you, you kind of clam up and think, I don't want to answer this because they're going to wonder why I haven't gotten a degree yet. Why didn't I do this sooner? And then the fear of failing, well, this is that fear of re-enrolling in school and having to drop out again. Or maybe it's your first time back in school and you just simply don't make it. This was a very real fear that I had because I had already dropped out once. And so when I went back to school, I had this mentality of I am doing this no matter what. I absolutely cannot fail out because I had that fear that if I did, again, I would be judged for it. How many of you can relate to feeling some of this yourself? Or maybe there's something else you're struggling with. If so, let us know in the comment section below. But right now that we've talked about your story and maybe some of the inner turmoil, the one takeaway I want to give you at this point is that no matter what your story is, it's valid. So whatever reason you have for not already having a degree, it's a valid reason. It doesn't matter if you simply didn't value your education when you were younger. Again, it's valid. So taking that, now let's shift our perspective into something a little more productive. I want to talk about the older student advantage because believe it or not, but there's actually power in going back to school as an older student. So much power because that life experience you have is an asset. So I know a lot of you struggle with imposter syndrome, that feeling like you don't belong, but quite frankly, you've been out in the workforce, out living life for years, even decades. And by doing so, you've been sharpening the exact tools you need to be a successful student. So this is going to be things like learning how to manage your time, learning how to prioritize tasks. You've probably been faced with many challenges that you have to work through, or you simply know how to do things you don't want to do because you have to do them. It's the real world. You can't just say no. These are the tools that are going to carry you as a student. And oftentimes, these are the things that younger students don't have a lot of experience with and things that they struggle with. And so being an older student does have its advantages. Matter of fact, another advantage you may not have considered yet is that you're going to have more clarity about your goals because now that you've made the choice to go back to school a little bit later on, you're there because you want to be, not because you have to be or society says you should be. It's because you want to be there. And that's going to make all the difference because now you're going to have a stronger sense of direction. Your motivation is going to be more organic. And so this is how you tap into that power I keep mentioning because now you are going to school backed by your desire to be there. And there's actually a really important byproduct to this, which I consider to be the third advantage, and that's that you're going to take a more serious approach to your education. Something I wish more people understood is that just because you were a bad student previously, this doesn't mean you're going to be a bad student currently. I want many of you to soak that in. Being a bad student in a past life doesn't mean you're going to be a bad student in this current life. So for those of you that struggled in high school or early college, there's a good chance you're not going to face those same struggles now simply because you value your education more now than you did when you were, say, 18, 19, or in your early 20s. So now that you have clear intention and a greater sense of purpose, I guarantee you're going to absorb material differently. And also, there's a good chance that you're paying for your education now, or getting this degree is what is standing in the way of you getting a promotion or making more money. And so as we all know, money is a very strong motivator. And so again, this is going to lead to you being a different learner. Something else I'd like to address is respect. And so this kind of ties into that fear of being judged. You know, you go back to school, you're the older student in class, you're worried younger students are going to judge you for being there. Quite frankly, it's the opposite. First, younger students, they're tied up in their own insecurities and fears to even care or notice that you're older. And quite frankly, a lot of times these younger students will look up to you for guidance and support simply because you are older and you're more mature. And so kind of a funny anecdote, but I re-enrolled in school 2 years ago to pursue a culinary degree simply for fun because I like cooking. And what I noticed my first semester back is that I would get asked all the time by students that were younger than me for help, for advice, where's whatever in the cooking lab. And I would explain that, hey, look, I'm just as new as you. And I don't know how many times I got hit with, oh, I just assumed you've been here for a while. And so just keep that in mind anytime you feel out of place. Really, no one's paying attention. The other thing to consider when it comes to respect is that your professor is more likely to take you seriously because you're an older student, because you made the choice on your own to be in school. They're going to see you as someone who's most likely there to work and learn. And so they're going to have confidence in your abilities. And by the way, me saying any of this, I'm not indirectly saying that if you're a younger student, your professor isn't going to respect you or any of the other points I've made in this video. Simply put, professors are going to value people who value their education. Doesn't matter if you're right out of high school, in your late 50s, if you take yourself seriously, your professor will take you seriously. It's just more common that the students that tend to not care are usually on the younger side. But for those of you that can relate to what we discussed in this video, I really hope you lean into the older student advantage. That being said, not all of your fears and struggles are going to be internal. Some of them are going to be more external, such as the fear of academic writing. So a lot of you probably haven't written papers in years or decades. Some of you haven't written a paper at all on a college level. And so I actually created a video that targets this specific topic. In other words, if I'd never written an academic paper before, this is the exact information I would need to get started and succeed as if I've been writing papers for years. So go ahead and check out that video. And by the way, let me know if you enjoyed this talking style and hope to see more in the future.